What's up, everybody? Thanks again for joining me for another edition of March 4th with Mike Bauman. I, of course, am your host, Mike Bauman. Whoever you are, wherever you are listening from, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. If you're a returning listener, I greatly appreciate your continued love and support. And if you're a brand new listener of the show, man, thank you so much for hopping aboard that pirate ship. You can follow me on Instagram at March 4th Pod, on YouTube at March 4th Pod. My website is march4th.podbean.com. The link tree with all of my stuff is in the podcast description for this episode. Y'all made it here, so you found me somehow, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you checking out another edition of the March 4th with Mike Bauman podcast. I hope that everybody is doing well out there. For those of us here in the United States, as you are listening to this episode, it will be the 4th of July. So happy Independence Day to all of my fellow Americans. I feel very privileged and blessed to have been able to be born in this country and experience all of the freedoms that I get to experience living here in the United States of America. And I hope that we all just continue to get better, man, and love each other regardless of race, sexual orientation, occupation, religious preference, all that stuff, man. I really hope that we get better about being good to each other. Like I say at the end of every episode as a tribute to my Gramp, keep the faith and be kind to one another. We need more love in the world. We need more love right now in the States. So just remember how fortunate you are if you are a fellow American citizen listening to this, man, to live in this country, to experience the freedoms that we have. It truly is a privilege, man. And we don't get to decide where we're born, who we come into this world to in terms of our families and whatnot and our parents. And I feel very privileged to have been born here. I'm a huge supporter of the military. Multiple members of my family have served in the military. One of my best friends served in the military and fought for this country as a 19-year-old kid with a machine gun for the Marines over in Iraq, and I know had to see and do some crazy things, man, some awful things that, again, as we wake up and start our days, have our coffee and our tea, go to work, just things that we've never had to endure. There's a lot of people who sacrifice, everything, and some, unfortunately, their lives to protect us and to give us the wonderful things that we have in this country. So don't take it for granted and don't take each other for granted. And I want to say thank you to all of our veterans, to anybody who's active duty, military listening to this. I love you. I appreciate everything you do for us, man. And I can't thank you enough for your service and your bravery, man. So, again, for the rest of us who are citizens, again, man, keep the faith and be kind to one another, man. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care what you do for a living. The way I was brought up and the way I live my life, man, as long as you're not hurting any other living creature, I really don't care what it is that you do. I just hope that you're kind and you walk in love, man. That's what I'm trying to do. So thank you to everybody for listening to the show. It's crazy, man. I think this is episode 107? It's nuts, man. It's over 100 now, approaching 110 episodes, and I couldn't have gotten this far if it weren't for all of the awesome people that support me and, encourage me to keep going. There's always naysayers, there's always doubters, but I love doing this, man, and this is something that I do in my free time outside of my day job. And I love doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it, and I hope it continues to grow. And one thing that you can do to help it grow, even though I hate begging for this stuff, is if you take the time to like and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review. You can leave a rating on Apple. You can leave a rating on Spotify. Apple also allows you to leave comments. Those things go a long way in helping the show get out to more people. When you subscribe, when you like, when you tell a friend to tell a friend. So to anybody who has done that, thank you so much. And to all of you who are listening, if you do enjoy what you hear, please take the time to do that, man. It helps these conversations get out to more people and put people on to inspiring conversations about persevering, moving forward, awesome bands and artists that maybe you weren't aware of before. and it helps get their name out there. And that's what this is all about, man. So again, appreciate everybody listening. And if you are a first-time listener, welcome aboard that pirate ship. And speaking of being thankful and being grateful, and just making awesome connections, man. Once again, I'm so fortunate to be in this position. And when I say blessed, I know there's some people are like, oh, I'm blessed. And I'm, this isn't a show. This isn't for show, y'all. This is a show. You are listening to a podcast, but none of the things that I'm saying are empty calories. They're not for show. I mean every word of it. And I am truly fortunate to get the opportunity to talk to a lot of really awesome people, man. And this week's guests are awesome people. They're very talented. They're very humble. We had a great conversation. They are none other than Sasha and Andrey of the pop metal band Major Moment. Major Moment is based in Boston, but Sasha and Andrey originally are from Russia. And they've got a really awesome story that you guys are going to hear as soon as I shut my big yapper. We get into a lot, man. We talk about the band. We talk about them growing up in Russia, how they got into heavy music. If you're a fan of bands like Linkin Park, Bring Me the Horizon, Starset, I Prevail, you will love these guys. But they've had a really awesome journey over the last several years with Major Moment. Their One Small Step EP came out back in 2018. The sequel then came out in April of 2019. And they've had a string of really successful singles. I mean, some songs that I like from their back catalog, Living Your Life. It's got the cool disco drum beat in that. We talk about that a little bit. If you like Got the Life. Toxic, I really love. That one just dropped in April of this year, and it's, I think, been one of their most successful, if not their most successful single right out the gate. It's already approaching 120,000 streams on Spotify alone, so I'm sure globally across all platforms it's way more than that. And The Flood is a great one as well. May Leave Scars, those are some of my favorites. Their latest one, Overcome, just came out within the last few days of me recording the intro and close to this show, man, and in late June, and it's already making a lot of noise. There's some great, positive, uplifting lyrics in that. And what I really love about Major Moment is they combine all these elements. They've got great melodies, they have great musicianship, and the music videos that they put together too are really like short films. When we talk about that, I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into just the whole around, 360 degrees of what these guys do. And Sasha and Andrey are just an awesome dynamic duo that really leads the charge with this. I loved their Live in Danville release that they did as well. There's so much to talk about with these guys, and I really appreciated the time that they gave me, man. Their forthcoming album, full-length album, The Pain That Makes Us Grow, is coming out soon, so stay tuned. But to hear Toxic and to hear Overcome, man, I'm just really excited for this full length, and we talk about that a little bit too. We talk about the meaning behind the name of it, The Pain That Makes Us Grow. There's just a lot of really cool common threads between the band and this show in terms of themes of persevering, moving forward, overcoming, no pun intended, with their latest single. So there's just, man, there's a lot of love here, man. Even though this is the first time I've talked to Sasha and Andrey, I just really, really appreciate what they do. I connected with their music, on a core level, man. And again, a lot of the themes that they have in their music and just in their lives, as you guys will hear, things that they've gone through. And, and we even talk about the war with Ukraine and how they feel about that, and how that ties into their new music that's coming as well. Like, there's just a lot of common threads here, and it's just cool when you connect with good souls and good people who also like to headbang. So without further ado, I'm gonna shut my big yapper and give you guys my conversation with Sasha and Andrey of Major Moment. Here it is. Alrighty, you guys. Well, thank you so much once again, man, for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk to y'all. Major Moment has done some really cool things over the last few years, and you guys are continuing to grow. Toxic is doing well. I believe it's your your biggest single initially out the gate, and I know the music video, the last time I checked, has almost 40,000 views just within the first month of its release. So congrats on the success of Toxic early on here from its release, and thank you for joining the show, you guys.
Hey, thanks, man.
Hello,
Happy to be here.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.
Yeah, so just as we get started here, for people who aren't aware of you guys, why don't you tell them your name and what you do in the band, and that way when you speak, they know what's up.
Well, my name is Sasha, and
this is Andrey.
Andrey, and we pretty much do everything in the band. We sing, we play some synths, we write, we produce, we film, manage, and do
keep going. Social media management. All the promotions, advertising, marketing, all that good stuff. Modern DIY musicians, they wear many hats.
Well, Sasha, Andrey, once again, thank you so much for the time. I want to start with the pipes, because you guys both got the vocal ability. And for people who aren't aware, you're originally from Russia, right? Like, I guess just the place to start is, when did music grab you? When did you guys start going down the rabbit hole? What do you remember your first music memory, as far as what made you go, oh my gosh, that's something I want to get into?
Right. The rabbit hole is quite deep, for sure. One of my first music memories, gotta be when I was a little kid, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, maybe. I grew up in a family that is, although not professional musicians, but very much music involved, and like music related people. And my dad plays guitar and piano, my mom sings. My both parents, they graduates of music school. And you can imagine, like, I was introduced to music. I'm such a disappointment. I'm such a failure related to them, to be honest with you. But they're like classically trained and all that. So it's not like they wanted me to be a musician. That was never a thing, I guess. But I was kind of introduced to music at an early age. Like, I went to music school for a few years as well. I was taught to play some piano, and like, music was always on in our house. So, and interestingly enough, like you mentioned, we're from Russia originally, but it was mostly like Western type of music that was on in our house.
Same.
Interestingly enough, my mom is a huge fan of ABBA. My dad is a huge Beatle maniac. So there was like pop/rock influences that kind of touched me from early age.
Yeah, and I was born on a radio day, actually, on May 7th.
International Radio Day.
Yeah, so it turns out the lyrics just come into my head anytime I hear something. So even though I didn't know English back then, when I was a little kid, I was singing everything.
Gibberish.
Gibberish
English.
Gibberish, then it became, I learned English, and then it all started to make sense, and I love singing from the day I was born, pretty much. We were singing on the chair on all the holidays. But it's all started more or less professionally when I moved to the States.
How long have you guys been in the States now?
I've been here since 2006. Like living, and I first visited the States in 2005. So that's what, 18 years? 18 years? Yeah, 18 years.
It's been 9 years for me. I moved in 2014.
Oh, wow. So when did the heavy music bug bite you guys? Because obviously you guys, I mean, there's all kinds of influences in your music, and I really like the cinematic elements. You guys have the synth elements. Even in I believe it's Living Your Life, there's that cool kind of like disco drum beat, and I kind of get it back to like almost like Korn, Got the Life, kind of that.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Cool.
when did the heavy music bug bite you guys?
So I think, uh, well, like I mentioned, my dad was more into like rock side of things, like less heavy than metal, I guess, more on melodic side. But that also made an influence, made an impact on me and our current sound, obviously. But the first bands were probably the heavy bands that I started listening to were probably like started with like a little bit of Metallica maybe, and then obviously the big influence is Linkin Park, and then there was well, I don't know how much,
Well, it was a big jump for me.
right?
I was listening to Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys, and then all of a sudden I heard
Toxic.
Somewhere I Belong on one of
Okay.
my friend actually shared the song with me, and I was like, wow, that sounds so good. And Linkin Park was all over the place back then. So yeah, I really liked it from the first listen and started to discover more heavy music.
Yeah,
So Linkin Park introduced me to this beautiful industry.
right. I was probably, I don't know, 14, 15 when I first heard Linkin Park, and that was when they just started. And they just had One Step Closer and Crawling back on MTV when that was a thing.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, MTV. Rest in peace.
When they used to play music,
When they used to
right?
play music, right? That were good old days, you know. I can't say that I don't miss them. I miss them a lot. Music videos, and you could probably tell, like, by the way we have our music videos done, that we kind of take the book out of that, take the page out of that book from the MTV good old days, like with the cinematics and the story-driven visuals and all of
Oh
that.
yeah.
Like for us, it's important, even though MTV is gone. Like we want to tell like stories not only through our music but also through our music videos and the artwork and visuals and like lyric videos and whatnot. Um, yeah, so heavy music, MTV, Linkin Park, good old days.
Yeah,
I sound like an old man, I am, but honestly, it's always like this old man yells at the cloud kind of a thing. That somebody complains about how things were better, but those things were definitely better though. Like you could turn on TV, and there you had some decent music playing. Like right now, you can obviously turn on YouTube and have whatever that you want to be on.
Right.
That's gonna be on, like access to everything. But the downside of that is that just what's called like analysis paralysis. Just like so many options that you get lost in them, and it's like, where do I begin? So I guess uh, freedom of choice is awesome, amazing, right? But a little bit of curation, I guess, um,
Wouldn't hurt.
is also, yeah, wouldn't hurt sometimes, because like when I open Spotify, like I get dragged into 17 different directions, and I don't, even finish one song by the time I get served like another song. Like I see something flashy and I switch the app, and it's just a nightmare.
no, I relate to being like an old man in a young man's body, man. I just turned 35. Well, yeah, March 4th, like I was telling you guys, I just turned 35. I was looking in the mirror today and I was like, oh my God, I hope I don't is my line receding, or is there grays coming in my beard? But hey, man, it's cool.
No, you look great, man.
It's part to get to
You look great.
you guys look great too, man. But yeah, I remember too very vividly when Hybrid Theory came out. I think I was in 7th grade because it came out in 2000,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Lucky man.
Linkin Park. They've come up numerous times on this show over the years with different artists. It's just so cool how their influence 2+ decades later, sadly with the tragic passing and everything of Chester, like it's tough, but his music will continue to live on. But I think the first song that I heard was because I remember the music video. I think it was Paper Cut.
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard Paper Cut, and then I think I heard One Step Closer, and I remember that music video. and then Crawling was the one that kind of like they crossed over a little bit, and that one like more, it was like more palatable, I think, for people who weren't into like the super heavy stuff.
Yep.
You know, and then it just kept going from there, man. But yeah, Hybrid Theory, I think that's a pretty and it's cool because for a while people kind of crapped on new metal, and I kind of feel like it's coming back now. It's cool.
Oh,
again.
for sure. Oh, it's 100% coming back. It's already back. It's back, baby.
Yeah.
If you want it or not.
Right, whether you want it or not, it's back now. Yeah, for sure. Like so many, like I was just listening to the podcast, the other podcast with the band From Ashes to New. I don't know if you're aware of them or not. They get compared to like Linkin Park often. But what they were saying is like back when they were making music in like the 2010s, right? 2012, 2013. That's when it was really not cool to be a new metal band. You know, and now it's back, and they're like, oh, finally we can we can breathe, you know, and like nobody's judging us for having this new metal sound, because back then they were like, oh, why are you doing this? This is totally not cool.
Yeah, it's funny, man. And I got a chance to see them here in Nashville. Memphis Mayfire was on tour with them, and they were great, man. Danny Case, I mean, he's a monster. He's got a great voice, and you know, they mix those hip hop influences, and I think the guitarist had the 7-string going. So yeah, I loved it. I mean, I grew up on all that stuff, man. Like for a while, I feel like Limp Bizkit became like a real target of like new metal hate, and they're again too. And I'm like, all of y'all talking smack on Limp Bizkit. I don't know how many of you guys want to follow them, because I don't think you'd want to follow them. You know? There's bands in this industry that you don't want to follow, and I would say Limp Bizkit is one of them. Seven Dust is another one. He's still like, it's weird to say that they're underrated, but I feel like they are, because I feel like so many like your favorite band would probably be like, oh yeah, Seven Dust, but I don't feel like they don't get as recognized as some other bands. But and then obviously like Metallica, Korn, like there's bands that you don't want to follow, but I feel like for whatever reason, Limp kind of became like that poster child of like hate on new metal, and I never really understood, you know what I mean? Because I love those guys too.
But you also have to keep in mind that the perception in other countries are completely different. Like Nickelback, for example, I had no idea that
that's a great example.
Such hate over here. And when I moved, it was a surprise.
Right. I don't think they're
in Russia. They're very popular and nobody cares.
Right. I don't think they're nearly as hated in Europe either. So it's like a US thing to hate on Nickelback. You know, and after that, it kind of switched slightly to Five Finger Death Punch, right? And now, who are we hating now? Well, we don't hate anyone. So, but there's always this band that everybody's talking about, and I'm gonna be the first to say I have a feeling. I have just a feeling it's gonna be Sleep Token for a while now.
Yeah, I love Sleep Token, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I mean, as an American, I definitely like, and I'm guilty of it at times too. Like I used to kind of turn my nose up at country a little bit because I liked metal, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, country, you know what I mean? Pop music, and I'm like, dude, I can't hate on pop, because like I love 80s stuff. Like Prince is one of my all-time faves. He's a kid, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, so I think the music snobbery, it's not good. And I don't like it in metal either. You know, there's always the subgenres, you know, there's metalcore, there's new
There's
metal.
a lot of it in metal.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to see those walls start to come down, and I think that they have. Like we've been talking about new metal, like that's cool again. It's more accepted again, and you start to see these shows where and maybe that's what's helping. You know, you see sort of the cross-pollination on the bills with the artists, where you'll have a new metal band, and then maybe you'll have a more metalcore band, or you'll have somebody like Sleep Token who's mixing in kind of like R&B stuff into their sound. You know what I mean? Like
right, with pop and then metal and all of that. Yeah. That's why I brought it up, because I think like it's about the bands that you either love or you absolutely hate that caused this kind of a thing. Like with Nickelback, it's obviously, you know, they wrote some ridiculous bangers that have like tens and hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
streams, right? But then again, people criticize them for kind of being formulaic with their writing, and like they have 6 or 7 songs that just follow the same kind of chord progression and all of that. That's not to say those are bad songs. Those are amazing songs, like people, especially if people can connect with them,
Definitely.
But yeah.
There's a lot of people who hate on Nickelback who secretly listen to those.
Yeah.
Under the blanket,
as
listen
well.
to turn on all favorite turn on the Rockstar and like all favorite songs from Nickelback. Yeah.
Yeah, I always feel like the crow that's the loudest is usually the most cowardly one. You know what I mean? It's like the people who kind of have the biggest mouth is like, deep down, come on, you bang some Nickelback.
Right, exactly.
And I think a lot of it too, is just jealousy. There's people who are like, oh, we're this and that, and they get all the attention. And like you said, listen, I mean, whether people want to, knock on them because they have a bit of a formula, it's like, well, what are they supposed to do? Like make songs that people don't want to listen to? Like,
right.
Go, oh, this works. Let's not do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like that would be stupid, right? Like not to, like you release something and like all of a sudden it's like your best song ever. Like, well, from my perspective, right? Like I'm in no way comparing myself to Nickelback, right? And like the scale is just so different. But like you mentioned before, Toxic is now our like most successful release, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And before that was The Flood. But like we kind of tried to specifically not to write Flood 2. And like we didn't want to write Toxic 2. Like we have a whole album of different sounding songs. And like we're trying to explain to our fan base, like they've been asking us, like, oh, like when is like another song like that is coming? Like can't you write like Toxic 2 or like The Flood 2? And we're like, well, yeah, I guess we can, but like we try to keep it interesting for ourselves as well. We can definitely perfect the formula for sure, and maybe we will attempt at writing something that sounds somewhat similar to some of the songs that we had released before. But
I think it kind of subconsciously gonna happen anyways, because I think at this point we already have our sound, and
right,
whatever,
more or less, yeah.
It's already gonna be like a Major Moment song, so. But hopefully it's going to be a little bit different than the previous one.
Right. And that was the goal with our...
Or a lot different.
Right. That was the goal with our new album, that we wanted to write like... There's 14 songs in the album. 4 of them are out right now. It's The Flood, Dead, No Fear, and Toxic. And there are 10 more songs. One of them, Overcome, is coming out in late June. We wanted to specifically write songs that would not sound like, well, that sounds exactly like I just heard like 2 tracks before that. We wanted to write like an album of different sounding songs, different moods, but we kind of wanted to keep it, I would say, upbeat and energetic, so it definitely does not sound like anything off of One Small Step, and definitely doesn't sound like anything of the sequel either.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're more like hard sounding, like heavier songs, even if they're like mellow mood wise.
Mm-hmm.
They have some pretty heavy guitars and heavier vocals, heavier lyrical themes as well.
It doesn't sound like I'm eating the mic, by the way, does it? Is it?
No, it's awesome.
Okay. Because I've listened to a lot of loud music over the years, so sometimes I'm like, am I projecting out loud too much? I'm kicking myself because you guys got such a cool setup. I'm like, man, I should have been more diligent this week at getting my new computer set up. So,
trust us when we tell you this was nothing short of a nightmare to set everything up. And like we wanted to set it up with like a nice Shure SM7B microphone, and we have like an audio interface. Nothing worked as we expected it to, and just like we had to roll with the punches and like do certain things a different way. We have like a second camera set up over there that never worked either. So we're figuring it out as we go as well.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad about it at all.
Well, you guys sound great, man. Like I said, I literally am using a Toshiba laptop right now, and they don't even make them anymore. But it's got Harman Kardon speakers, which they've gotten 13 years of use. And like I said, my video looks like I'm from 2010. So
That's all good.
Hey,
whatever works. You know, like you gotta use whatever is at your disposal, right? Yeah.
Well, breaking into that YouTube game, man, I was like, and you guys know from commenters, and we'll get into it with Toxic, because I know it was inspired by a hater on the internet. But I was like, man, if I'm going to put stuff on YouTube and really open up and be vulnerable and be out there like that, I know I'd probably get crapped on if I had like a really old camera and stuff. So I'm like, at least if I get a new laptop, I'll look somewhat presentable. But
Hey man, it doesn't matter, like not it's like whatever the amount of money you're gonna spend, whatever the setup you're gonna have. Like if you spend $20,000, somebody's still gonna say like, oh, those lights suck, or something. The lighting suck here, or like they're not the color palette is awful here. Oh, listen to the sound.
The bar is high right now.
The bar is very high. That is true.
Knows everything about lighting and cameras and how to figure out the shot and everything, so it's difficult.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for somebody to be like, hey Mike, what's up with your face and your voice combo, dude? Why do you sound like that?
On the other hand, it's better to start somewhere and then progress from there than just never attempt to do anything.
That is actually very true, and that's the lesson that musicians need to kind of learn. A lot of like bedroom musicians need to learn is that releasing something rather sooner than later, and then learning from your mistakes and then fixing those mistakes and adjusting is better than just sitting trying to perfect your mix for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you have no feedback whatsoever on that. You don't know whether your songs are even any good, or if people want to connect with them. Just imagine how much further would you be after 7 years of releasing music and gradually getting better. And that's what we're trying to do in a way with Major Moment as well. Is like, if you listen to our first EP, One Small Step, it's a very well done EP from the perspective of production and mixing and mastering. Like, we didn't spare any expenses there. So it's all professionally done, but like from the perspective of songwriting, we could have probably fixed certain things here and there, and obviously the EP sounds light years ahead of our home demos, right? But now we're getting to the point where our demos start to sound something like what you would hear on One Small Step, right? And then we're taking it to the studio to further perfect. And to work on production.
It's like they say, the mix is never finished. It gets abandoned.
Yeah, it's only abandoned. Yeah, that is very true, actually. Yeah, so we're trying to. We're always fighting about this as well. Like, Sasha is good with like video editing, so I always tell her like, hey, listen, like, you just spent like 8 hours on working on something that people are just gonna be like, swipe up in like less than 3 seconds. Like, they're not gonna care the slightest about it. And like, you can spend another month doing that video, is not gonna get that much better. It might get like 5% better, but like, will people notice that 5%? Chances are no. Maybe they care more about the rest of that 95% than about that little tiny thing. Some people are forgiven about like little things, but you gotta know where it's allowed, probably, right? Yeah,
and like we were talking about with the development of your sound, I think the artists that have staying power do a great job of that, where it's like when you listen to Korn in 2022 and 2023, it still sounds like Korn, but if you follow the band, you see that progression from that first record. I'm a big fan of Alter Bridge, and they're a band to me that if you go back and listen to their early stuff, and then you come up to their latest record, Pawns and Kings, like, it still sounds like Alter Bridge, whether you want to call it a formula or just a signature sound, but they expand upon it. Same thing with like
Right.
Seven Dust. I'm a big Seven Dust stan. I love Seven Dust too, and so I think that's cool. And going back and listening to your guys' earlier stuff, and then listening to The Flood and listening to Toxic, you guys have your own vibe. I'll just call it that, because I think vibe's a more positive word than maybe formula, or maybe the way people think about formula, or maybe I'm just way up in my head right now. But that's what I like about what you guys are doing, man. Genuinely, like I really enjoy. I'm a big movie guy too, so I really
awesome
videos, and I love the cinematic elements because the music videos are really they're almost like short films, what you guys are doing. You did The Flood, and then you did The Flood epilogue where Sasha, you were in like that. Oh, did they bring the black water back? And then it starts to zoom. I'm like, oh, there's black water again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Cool how you guys have tie-ins. So in my little rant here, I'll actually ask you guys a question and just say, when you guys are coming up with the concepts of the visuals to the songs, do you already kind of have an idea in your head when you're recording the music, or is it not until you actually kind of like chalk it out and go, okay, like I think this would be cool for the music video? Which usually comes first? Is the idea already there, or does it come after the song is finished?
That's an interesting question. I'm trying to think.
I think maybe partially it kind of
subconsciously, maybe, right?
Appears in the moment of writing, but not like the whole concept, though, obviously, but some ideas maybe, because when you listen to something, I don't know, you visualize.
Right. And when you write lyrics, like when we sit down and write lyrics and like, or rather go like during the pro-production sessions with Kevin Billingsley, our producer, we sit down and like we kind of break our lyrics apart and see what can be said in a better way, or like what can be better flow in with the music and all of that, so we fix little things here and there. And sometimes we sit down and like we literally try to explain like what this phrase is saying by using metaphors and like visuals, and like so from like when we write lyrics, I guess that there is this visual element. But do we necessarily end up making that music video is a different question. I guess it's just a different place in the brain, like that you go to. And like when you write lyrics, it kind of specifically has to bring you back to writing the better lyric. And when you sit down and you brainstorm concepts and treatments for music videos, there's so many other variables now, the song that it's done, right? And whether you remember what you initially thought about as far as when you were writing lyrics or not.
But now, also you don't want to be too like straightforward
to direct with the meaning, right? Like you kind of want to give visuals kind of the different story, like it's a different story that a side of the story, at least, that we try to tell with the with our music videos. And obviously there's budget involved, and there are many limitations when it comes to making a music video, when you're writing lyrics, like you don't have any, like you can imagine whatever you want, in your head and like draw from it. When you're making a music video, you're like, well, no, we cannot have the Fast and Furious.
You cannot do that.
We cannot explode cars and like go complete bonkers with like Hollywood style, visuals and like visual effects. Although we started planning The Flood right after we finished writing it, and we didn't have a mixed version or even a recorded version. We just had like a rough demo of it, and we went to Tyler at the Revelry Studios, who directed the music video for The Flood, and we kind of sat down with him and explained like the visual idea behind the song and like what we wanted to do, because it was super ambitious for us.
His eyes when we said we want to flood the room. I was like, what?
Went straight into the panic mode. He's like, no, like How are we gonna do that? Like, I don't know, but I guess we'll make it happen.
Surprisingly, he agreed and said yes after all. So that was amazing.
Right.
Now he's running away from us.
He is, yeah. Like I don't want to get involved in any more complicated projects like the Flood 2 or any of those. So you guys figure something out. I'm totally down to shoot like a simple performance video with you. But we're like, nah, we want another blockbuster.
I gotta say the melody in that song, man, is like chef's kiss, like for real. And I'm not just saying to like butter y'all's bread because you're kind enough to come on this podcast. Like you know, when you go into that, it's so cool. And you know, looking at, because I think you guys also did a lyric video for that as well, and that was
yeah.
That was cool to see that and like actually read the lyrics while I was listening to the song, kind of like the old school days. You know, you get out the CD and you open up. But the melody in that is so awesome. And what I loved about the music video, for people who haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I mean, keep listening to the show right now, and then after it's over.
Right.
But you guys had these characters in the music video, and then eventually the black water starts to kind of come in and rise and eventually flood. And I was trying to figure out, and that's what I was curious about asking you guys about. It was really cool. It almost was like it almost was like a dream to me, the way that music video was. Like, I feel like that's like when you wake up from like a weird dream and you're like, what was going on? Like that's, and I mean that in a good way. Like, that's kind of how that music video, when I watched it, it was like, this is almost like, I don't want to say nightmare because it wasn't scary, but it was just like just where you have things happen in your dream and you're like, okay.
It was a nightmare to make.
but a lot of fun too.
I'm joking. No, what I wanted to say is, like, you're actually spot on. Like, you're hitting the nail on the head right now. Was as far as like the weird dream and it being more like a nightmarish kind of a feel to it. It definitely is 100% correct. And like, that was all intentional. And, you know, I have problems with sleeping well. So I get nightmares and all sorts of things. So I guess that kind of contributes to the music videos and our like whatever the darkness we have in our songs. Because I have those visuals, and like, it's always like something apocalyptic and some kind of freaking the end of the world situation.
Right. Unfortunately, we only had one night to film this video, so I'm pretty happy.
We didn't fit all my nightmares into one video.
We
have more
time to film, but I mean, whatever we have, I'm pretty happy with.
So, Andrey, did that music video then, was it inspired by a dream?
I guess in a way. Like, I definitely had dreams when, you know, like there were like huge tidal waves, like kind of a scene from like Interstellar movie when they, you know, land on that weird planet where time goes like super fast, and then they get hit by one of those like huge waves. So that's definitely like an imagery out of my dream, 100%, and like everything gets destroyed in a way. Terrible. Yeah, but I didn't see the music video play out exactly like it did in my dream, or not even close. But I guess certain elements, like, it's super hard to explain but certain elements, like, I kind of borrow from those, and like I draw from those like nightmares and try to turn them into something that is like, you know, positive in a way. So
yeah, because I was almost thinking, like, was it kind of a play on like was it the 7 deadly sins? Because the one guy, I kind of he, to me, represented like gluttony.
Gluttony,
like,
yeah.
The guy that was, he, you know, you put the cup on the table and he drinks it all, and then there's like the dessert thing and he smashes it and eats the whole thing, and it was kind of like he consumed almost like too much, and then at the end, like, it floods in. But yeah, I thought that was awesome. And with Toxic being the latest single, you guys went all out for that one too. There's the I don't even know what do you call, like, the little droppers, putting it in the liquid, and the guys in sort of the torture chair. Like, it was a cool it was a very cool music video. And I guess for people who aren't aware, kind of the backstory on that single, right, is you basically had a commenter who was peppering you guys like, when are you going to do a new song? And I'm tired of seeing you promoting this song. And then, as trolls often do, they go back under their bridge, and the guy just like disappeared. And you guys
we've never seen him again. I'm shocked that with as much promotion as we're doing right now, like we haven't seen him at all. Like even after we released Toxic, that would be.
Do you really remember who that was?
I don't remember the name, but if I see somebody commenting, I might go and check who that is. And if I see the face or like I see the name, I'll be like, oh, that's the guy, or like that's the girl, whatever. That's the person, right?
Maybe the song like it was like a break of like a spiritual cycle. I mean, not to get too trippy, but maybe that was kind of like what kept that person away. It's like, oh, now I can't come back and hate on these guys anymore because now this song's out and it's doing well. It was like good. It was like good karma for you guys. You guys turned like a negative into a positive, and then they had to see that, and they're like, maybe I should stay under my bridge. I shouldn't come out again now.
Right. Well, that's the idea. No, but we haven't seen him like for years, so right. I don't know what happened. Hopefully nothing bad happened to this person, and like he just decided he's not a fan of ours anymore, even if he ever was, right? Which I don't think so. Like it was nothing like that traumatic or damaging. It was just like you said, like kind of trolling us for like pushing the song, which at the time was The Flood, and like we took some time promoting that song because it did so well with our listeners. So we thought, well, our listeners respond to it so positively, but we have such a limited amount of listeners, right? We should expand it to new listeners as well and like introduce the song to them. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they react well. And then the music video took a lot longer than we expected it to, because we originally planned to release it like at the time the song comes out, right? But that took additional like 6 months of like editing and like making sure that's exactly how we wanted it to be. So by that time we released the whole album of remixes with our friends. So from this person's perspective, like he had the point, like we were pushing it a little too hard. But what people don't realize is that everything takes such a long time behind the scenes, from planning music videos, which in our case, like we started planning The Flood probably like 8 months before it came out. We started planning Toxic again back in September, October of last year, and we filmed it in January, so that's 4 months, and then we released it end of April, which is another 4 months, right? Yep. Like 3-4 months. So everything takes much longer than we wanted to, but that's probably because there's certain things, certain elements we don't want to compromise on, and like we don't want to kind of have them not as good as we initially wanted, because nothing comes out exactly like you see it. Like we wrote The Flood, and it's probably like 80%. It probably came out 80% as we wrote it, right? Definitely. Some scenes had to be scrapped. Same thing with Toxic. Some things didn't come out exactly like we wanted them. We had some technical difficulties on set that we were trying to fix in post. So, there's a lot. And while...
Well, Toxic was a little easier, I think.
A little easier, yeah, right. It was a lot easier, actually, because it was basically our second project already at that point.
But I would say the concept-wise, The Flood was much easier to come up with than Toxic.
Yeah, maybe, right.
Because it's kind of like a very, very, very relatable. Everyone knows what it is, and like you don't want to be too obvious, and the idea has to be something interesting and metaphorical, if you wish.
Yeah.
So that's what we came up with.
But besides music videos taking forever, also writing songs and like producing songs and promoting, like I mentioned in the beginning, like we wear many hats. So we unfortunately don't have an extensive team of people. We do have a team of people that are always there to help us out, but they also on different projects. And like with Kevin, our producer, for example, like he gets booked up months and months in advance sometimes, so what we've been doing is like we started booking studio sessions with him before we even have anything at all. Like, so by the time that this time is approaching, we already start writing something, and by the time we hit the studio, we have those songs, rather than have 10 songs, hit them up, and then wait 4 months or 5 months before the studio is available. So those little things, like the behind the scenes things that they kind of stay out of the view of a casual listener, and like they're not obvious. But
yeah,
unfortunately, that's the reality we're dealing with. Like everything takes much longer than we were hoping for.
Well, and art is such a personal thing too, right? I don't think people realize like you're essentially bearing your soul to people when you make a song, and it's most people, aren't that vulnerable in their daily lives, and they don't understand what it's like to be that vulnerable. It's always easier to sit and point from your throne than it is to actually, get in the mix and have something to say, or to be an athlete and to challenge yourself. You know what I mean? So I have a ton of respect for musicians and what they do, because I mean, like I said, like I stink on ice playing guitar because I don't really practice a lot. You know what I mean? And so I even when I got to kind of like being able to like play, Seek and Destroy, like at at not even a mediocre level, like it's nothing I would ever like. I can't even imagine what it's like to actually be very talented and work very hard as a musician.
I can't imagine either, man.
Stop and come up with the lyrics, and and then like you said, you finally get to the point where you mix it, and I think a lot of people don't realize that about musicians too. If you ask any musician, they'll probably be like, no, the song is never done, because there's always something that you go back and you listen to it.
Right.
By the time everybody else hears it, you've heard it 1,000 times, and you go, oh, we should have done that a little bit differently. Maybe we should have tweaked the drums a little bit here. Maybe that bass line should have been this. So
yeah. We'll listen to music differently too, unfortunately, nowadays.
Right.
It's like analyzing.
We're always like dissecting each like song onto like different elements, and like we're judging everything, I guess, not as a whole, but rather like as a separate part as well, which is kind of sad sometimes. Like I want to enjoy the music. I don't want to hear different instruments, and like I don't want to be judgmental towards the mix. Like back in the day, I had no idea what the mix is, and like I liked it. But
yes.
100%. But the thing is, like, I wanted to bring up 2 points. Point number one is that, we made it a rule that we have to have some deadlines, and like back when we started writing this record, I was like, I want 10 songs to be done, like by the time we hit the studio in the month of whatever that was, I think June.
And then here we are driving to the studio and writing songs in the car.
Yeah, that actually happened. Like I told you, like we book everything in advance. So like we were short. We were short on something, and we're like, we have to write something. We have 2 hours. We have 3 hours in the car. We better come up with a good damn concept right now. Otherwise, like we're gonna look into Kevin's eyes and gonna be like, well, I guess we can just go home. Because we have nothing, like we actually tried to write Toxic on the spot a couple of years ago. We started working on that song a long time ago, like almost right after we released The Flood, and that didn't go well at all. Like we had like little bits and pieces, but Kevin kind of started to get a little nervous about like wasting our time that we're paying for in the studio, that we're not being as productive as a collective, I guess, right?
And we've never done this before.
But it's all good. Like doing nothing and writing nothing, or writing bad stuff and then going back and fixing it, even if you don't come up with a single line during that 6-hour session in the studio, that's still work. You still thought of something, you were doing something, and through that, it might lead you to some new ideas that are actually going to work, and maybe you're gonna come up with them like on the spot, like nobody knows. Maybe you're gonna come up with them in like 10 minutes. You're like, well, how did I not think of that earlier, right? So that's one thing, right? It's like
you gotta embrace the suck.
You gotta embrace the suck 100%. And like you at some point, like that's part of the reason, one of the reasons why we're working with Kevin, with the producer, is because like he's being I guess like he has his own deadlines, right? He has other projects after us, whether it's mixing or there's a limited amount of revisions. So we have to be like, we cannot drag it for years and years. We have to at some point say we want to let go of this. Like we want it as we've done as well as we could at this time. Like there's nothing else we can do right now. 5 years from now, we'll probably listen to it and think, well, now I would do things differently. So that's exactly what happened with One Small Step, right? That we released 5 years ago. Right now, I just listened to it a couple months ago, and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it still holds up in a way, but I would tweak certain things here and there. So who knows? Maybe one of those days, maybe 10th anniversary or whatever, 7th anniversary, we're gonna go on and revisit a couple of those songs. Who knows?
Right.
And another thing I wanted to mention that I cannot even remember.
Nice.
See, musician's brain is just like, goes all over the place. I will eventually remember it. But yeah, setting up deadlines is super important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even doing this podcast, I relate to it. Like I try to get stuff scheduled out so I'm not like, oh crap, it's time to release an episode on a Tuesday, and what am I gonna do? And thankfully, it's gotten to a point where, I think people like coming on the show and they're finding out about it. I'm like, oh, cool. There's people, it's nice when people want to talk to you and you're not having to fish as much. It's cool to be, but I relate to that, man. Cause like you guys, I do it all myself. I mean, I book the guests, and prepare for the conversation, because I don't like to waste anybody's time, and I love music. I like to listen to the music, and I try not to ask like, I guess mundane questions. So I hope you're not bored.
Not at all. We appreciate it, by the way. And like that is what makes a professional, like that amount of homework that you did, and like we're chatting with you as if you were a part of the process for 5 years. You already named all our releases. You already listened to all of them. Like, so you already know a little bit of our backstory, so we're talking to you. We're not answering the same questions that we get asked all the time, and we don't start like from day one, even though like it's cool to go back and like revisit our humble beginnings and whatever the humble stage we're at right now. And by the way, I just remembered the first thing that I wanted to say before that. That was like you brought it up, that vulnerability, right? And how difficult it is for artists to like, kind of bare their soul and let it all out there into the world. I'm thinking like there are probably like different stages, although it always remains in a way, like if you have 0 listeners, right? And you think like, oh, what if nobody's gonna care about what I have to say? And that's probably true. Nobody's gonna care. If you have 0 listeners, like there's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, right? So like I'm thinking about it, like I guess there's less pressure in a way, for like somebody who's just releasing the music. That's also the reason why you have to start releasing music as soon as you can, because when you already have 1,000 listeners or 10,000 listeners or 100,000 listeners, you're gonna be releasing your music, and your thought process is gonna be like, oh, what if those people who care don't like it? So that's a different part of it, and it kind of also impacts you as an artist as well. Like, like maybe it's limiting in a way as well. I don't think it is for us at this stage yet, but I think the pressure is definitely there for like bigger bands that had like hits written, right? And it's always like this syndrome of the second album. Once the first album is like a huge hit, like in case of Linkin Park, for example. They were always questioned, like, are they going to be able to follow up with the material as strong as Hybrid Theory? And, they proved everybody, all their haters wrong, right? By following up with what people would consider maybe even a stronger album. Who knows?
Right.
But what people don't realize is that before they always say like the debut album of Linkin Park, like Hybrid Theory. But what people don't realize, there's like 6 or 7 years, right? Or at least 5 years of work, and at least one official release, even though like self-release of their EP before they signed to Warner Brothers, and before they had Hybrid Theory. So there were a lot of failures in those 5 years before success with Hybrid Theory.
Spirit Box, for example.
Or like Spirit Box, right? Not everybody knows that they had a band before that. I Wrestled the Bear once, and that was like they had a decent success, but not nearly as huge as they have with Spirit Box right now. And the first few singles of the Spirit Box release, they kind of went under the radar as well, right? Before they came up with the Holy Roller. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that are more like both fascinating and kind of scary in a way.
Do you guys feel like, and Sasha and Andrey, thank you again so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. Do you guys feel like, just building on that you guys are at a point now in your music and your careers doing this with Major Moment that you feel like you know how to strike that balance of, hey, we enjoy this and we know that the people who really ride with us are going to enjoy this too. In other words, like, if it means something to you and you're being authentic, it's going to reach somebody. Because I know that probably is a struggle with artists where you get to a certain point where, like you said, you have a really successful single like The Flood. And on one end, you're going, okay, like we have The Flood, but, we're going to get bored if we try to write The Flood Part 2, and we don't want to do like a watered down version of that. So let's instead of chasing like the flood wave, no pun intended, like let's try to make something that's exciting to us. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Do you guys feel like you're at a place now as songwriters and as musicians where if it feels right and you don't worry too much about the fans, or is it kind of like a 50-50 thing?
Sasha.
I think we're at the point where we just write music what we like, whatever we like. And I mean, do you feel limited? I don't feel limited.
I don't think so, but like before the release,
I'm like, give me more. Like, let me try this and that, and let's just throw it all out and see what happens.
Like so we try
experiment.
Yes, but to the extent, yeah.
Like we try to not think about whether or not the fans are gonna like it, like when we write something, I guess. But then by the time it's time to release the single, that's when it hits. Like, oh, are they gonna really like it? Like we had a feeling that they would enjoy Toxic. That's why we kind of put this foot forward.
Oh yeah, that stage when you're setting up the releases from the album, like which goes first and second and third, like that was hard.
Right, but there are other songs on the record that are a little more risky, I would say, and a little less conventional than Toxic is. But we think once people see this bigger picture, maybe if they listen to one song and that was their first song, they'll be like, I don't know about that. But maybe if they see a bigger picture within the album, like in the context, they're gonna see why we did certain things in a certain way. Like there are some songs that don't sound like I mentioned before, like they don't sound anything like we released before, and like they're really difficult to compare with anything that other artists do. Like they're not pop, they're not rock, they're not like metalcore, they're not metal. Like we're somewhere in between of those genres, and like I like it in a way, but for some people it's always going to be hard to like connect with that and relate to that, I guess, because it's really difficult. Like you're gonna have to like certain elements in pop music and certain elements of metal, and not everybody does, and that's totally fine. And
we're just telling the story, and if that story relates to someone, well, that's great. And if not, then that's okay too. We're just doing what we think and what we like.
And if not, there's always Nickelback.
That's right.
No, I wish we were a slightest bit as successful as Nickelback, obviously, and as good songwriters. But our next song is exactly that. Like that's our poppiest chorus we've ever written, and it has one of the heaviest parts over the bridge that we've ever written. So it's a weird blend. And I really think that people are gonna be, and it's the shortest song we've ever written. It's like almost under 3 minutes, I think.
And it's about overcoming difficulties.
Right. So very relatable to the theme of the podcast for sure.
Yeah, well, before we wrap it up, and thanks again so much, you guys, for doing this, man. It's been great talking with you, and I'm really excited for what you guys have in store. Touching on what we're talking about, just building on it, I really love the name of the forthcoming full length, the pain that makes us grow. I relate a lot to that, especially these last couple of years, and some of the stuff that I've gone through. And I'm not playing the world's smallest violin for myself, man, because I got a great life, and there's people who have it a lot worse than me. But the past 2 years of my life, ironically, I've had these periods in my life where I feel like professionally things are going well, but then like personal life, it was just like a friggin' roller coaster. And I don't know if a lot of people can relate to that, where it's like one thing is great, and then the other thing is like, what the hell is
100%.
going on?
Oh, definitely.
100%, man.
But yeah, I went through a really difficult breakup about 2 years ago that I didn't really see coming. And then looking back on hindsight, you're like, there's probably some stuff I missed. We got the rose colored glasses on sometimes when we're in love.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were several people around me who passed away more than at any other part in my 3 decades on this planet. And, but going through grief, going through loss, going through death and pain, you get to a point where you're kind of just like numbed out. You're all out of tears. You're all out of all the stages of grief, anger and sadness and bargaining and whatever, and eventually you're like, okay, man, I just got to like build myself back up. And this podcast was a great creative, beacon for me in a lot of ways, and being able to connect with people and just get out of my head and go into my day job and being able to work and stuff. But I say all that to say, when I saw the name of the album title and I was reading about you guys, in addition to listening to your music, that I really related that to that concept a lot, about pain making you grow and using darkness as a way to get to the light. Because I think oftentimes as humans, like, I think people, I don't know, maybe it's just kind of how we're trained with media and stuff that's out there, that darkness is scary. You should be afraid of it. It's not something you should access. And I feel like a lot of times those are the people that explode because they bury things so much
100%.
and they shove it down so much. And then it just comes out at the wrong time or the wrong person. And they're at JCPenney and they're like, I thought these pants were $15. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
You should have seen me. You should have seen me literally an hour ago.
And it's not even about
getting mad about the cameras and all of that, the setup.
Yeah, it's not even about.
That's a good one.
You know what I mean? It's about all the other stuff that they didn't take care of. So anyway, my little rant here, like I really related to that, and and like I said, things like the flood. Looking at the lyrics to that, you guys, I feel like again are kindred spirits here with the message of what you're trying to get across in your music. So it's a long way of saying I'm excited to listen to the whole thing. But before we wrap it up, can you guys talk a little bit about just the title of the record and that concept of using pain as growth in your life?
Yeah, we appreciate it, man, and we're happy that you're able to relate to the title of the album. And it's actually great that you brought it up, because the title was inspired by one of the lines from the upcoming song "Overcome," which goes, "If we overcome the pain, we will grow." So we decided to like transform that line into the title of the album. But we named it like this because when we were writing it, we were at a very dark place, and we started writing portions of it. And all of this, we decided that all of the songs, like they were kind of coming from the from us experiencing some kind of loss, or us feeling like defeated and broken in a way. Certain portions, like the flood, for example, it was inspired by several of our band members quitting all in the same day. And we were sitting there like thinking, oh, well, is that the end? Like, what else are we gonna do? Like, there's only two of us left, and there's nobody else. Like, there's no drummer, there's no guitarist. We have a show coming up. Like, what are we gonna do with it, right? So that we started writing about that, and then it transformed into more of a song as a perspective on like humanity, not caring about what they leave behind. Kind of like a metaphor about the band members leaving the band and not caring what they leave behind, like whatever the state that is. Like we thought like they're being a part of something bigger. They didn't feel that like that, obviously. With Toxic, well, I wouldn't say it was the pain. It was like, we got hurt a little bit. It's okay. Not the biggest pain ever. With Overcome, the song is dealing about us as artists, actually, and the difficulties that we go through and the constant rejection that we're going through every day. And like, you have to get over that, and it's difficult, and the vulnerability and all of that. And certain songs that they were inspired by this Russian aggression towards Ukraine and us being Russian, that was a shocker in a way. But now, like,
still cannot get over
right.
it.
But now, like you say, hindsight 2020, right? We could probably see certain things go bad, over the years. But for us, it was like a shock, and we were sitting here thinking like, how is the government of the country that we were born in, that we were a part of, that we grew up in, is doing something so horrible. Why they're doing this, like, and all sorts of lies and explanations that they feed Russian population right now is just horrible. So we lived that period of time thinking maybe that's going to be the end of the world. Maybe it's going to turn into Third World War or nuclear war, and nobody knows if it still will.
So
right?
many
It still
families
can.
were broken. It's like
Right.
It's really hard to wrap your head around it. So we just thought that we're gonna express everything that we're feeling in the songs.
Right, and we have certain songs that are talking about that topic specifically. We were sitting reading news 24/7. It was so unhealthy. We were reading news, and like right now, you read the news as they come out. Several minutes after something happens, it's already in the news, right? So you can imagine like sitting doom scrolling for 24/7. It's not very healthy, and like we were going crazy with it, and like after that, I said, well, let's just try to write something, and like try to find positive in the negative. And we think that the overall theme of
like a therapy too for us.
Oh, of course, yeah, 100%, yeah, exactly. Like we have something to say, but like we also go through that phase where nobody wants to listen to them sometimes, and like we have some people who are on the same page with us as far as like our stance on the whole aggression and like on the whole war. And there are some people even in our immediate family who are like, no, what are you talking about? Like you're a child, like shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. Our government is the best, and like all of this crazy nonsense. So there was a lot of personal attachment to that, and like we felt it personally. So we wanted to express something that we want people to hear. We just didn't know who to tell it to, and I guess now everybody's gonna listen.
Well, and again, I think that's something that has been touched on a little bit, and thank you for sharing that, because I can't even imagine. I mean, we're all watching it here in the States, and it's horrible to see, but I think in some ways, sadly, with the mass shootings and stuff that happen here, and the violence that happen here, and it's sad to say, but I think people get desensitized to violence. It scares me, the lack of empathy you see sometimes. And I think when it happens in another country, it's like, I don't know, in a lot of ways, I kind of feel like, not to speak for all Americans, because what do I know? But I do feel like maybe it's not even an American thing. Maybe it's a human nature thing where until something's beating your door down, right, you don't, it's not real to you, or you can't imagine it. So for you guys to be natives of Russia and see those horrible things happening, I don't think a lot of Americans realize that there's a lot of Russian citizens who want nothing to do with that. I mean, I think that was a very powerful moment. I think it was last year now. It's kind of crazy how all the days sort of bleed together, but the Russian citizens who were protesting, like, we don't want
partially the point is to express our position on that too, with the album and with the songs, to like express our position. And I guess to be the voice of so many Russian people,
of those people who really don't want to do anything with that, and like who feel that the pain that well, obviously it's hard to compare because, like, it's the Ukraine that's getting bombed right now, right? So I wouldn't be like comparing the pain, but like we also feel the pain, and like imagine, like you brought up like mass shooting, right? Like the closest comparison I can draw is like, imagine like a close relative of yours or like a significant other became a mass shooter, and you would be like, oh, like, what could I have done to stop it? How did that happen? Like, did I play any part in that? Like, there's a lot of like darkness and like difficult thoughts that go through the mind, and you always question like, well, what can you do? And like you try to do something little to help, whether it's just whatever the means of supporting the other people, the people on the other side, because obviously we used to call like Ukraine like our like brothers and sisters, like, and citizens of Ukraine. Obviously that's thrown out of
the closest country
right
to Russia.
Obviously that's thrown out of the window right now, and rightfully so. Like we totally understand all the anger, and like it's hard not to, but we want to be the voice of the people who are against that, and we want to tell the story about like how not everybody is in agreement with what's happening there, and a lot of voices are being silenced right now. A lot of them are jailed for just protesting or saying something,
or
like,
even the post on social media.
Media, exactly. And we're so lucky to live in a country where like we feel safe, and from this safety, like we want to say what we think about the situation, and like express the pain that we felt. And I hope more people are gonna be aware of the situation, and I hope at some point there's gonna be a rather peaceful resolution to whatever extent it can be after all this nightmare and all this violence. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough, but I always think that cooler heads prevail, and there's been a lot of horrible things that have happened throughout history of mankind, and I always go back to just like the human spirit is very strong. The human mind is very strong, and it can be used for good or bad. But I think if you look at, throughout history, there's always been, at least it seems like, right, like cooler heads prevail. And, we go through difficult times, and it ebbs and flows. And sometimes people have insatiable appetites for power, and,
Yeah.
really ruthless,
Definitely.
and it's really scary. But I think there's a lot of good people out there, man. And I think the fact that you guys using your musical gifts to be able to express that is a really beautiful thing, man. And I think there's a lot of people who know that there's a lot of Russian people who don't want any of this to be happening. So all you
Thank
can
you.
do, I mean, I hate the old tropes of like thoughts and prayers, because it seems like, gosh, like you said, you wish you could do so much more, but at the same time, man, I know that there's a lot of people who are feeling for what's going on over there, and
Right.
it sucks to feel helpless, but at the same time, I think the fact that you guys have an outlet is a really cool thing, and that you're using your voices to express that. So kudos to you guys for that, man.
Yeah, music really helps in many ways. And I always thought that I'm so strong mentally. I've been a professional tennis player for the whole my life, and it really shook me. Like I thought that I needed a therapist or something. It's really hard to go through all of that, and with music, we were able to get out of it at least a little bit, at least to some extent.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and therapy is helpful, man. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it. Like I've got an awesome therapist, just with my own anxiety and the stuff that I go through, and sometimes it's good to talk to people. But on a positive note, I know that was really heavy stuff, and I appreciate you guys going there with me, because I don't do this for exploitative reasons or anything like that. And anytime
Right, obviously.
death and destruction and that kind of stuff, it's really horrible. But to put a positive button on that, I guess I would just say again, I'm grateful that you guys do have an outlet, and I'm grateful that you guys are using your voices and the freedoms that we have in this country to express it. And you guys are connecting with people. I mean, it's cool to see the listeners that you guys have. I mean, the hundreds of thousands of views that you have in your music videos, like it's well deserved. You guys are putting the time in, and you're using your creative voices for good. So that's really cool. Well, just to wrap things up, Sasha and Andrey, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It's been really cool chatting with you both.
Thank you so much for having us, man.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm a genuine fan of what you're doing, and I'm really excited to listen to the whole thing. And I guess just as one last question here, even though you guys said you're night owls, I'm already 20 minutes over what I said I was going to keep.
Oh, that's totally cool, man. Don't worry about it.
With the theme
That
of the
means
show,
we're having a good time.
Exactly. Right.
Well, with the theme of the show being perseverance in moving forward, anything that you guys want to share with the listeners out there, as far as things that you feel like have been helpful for you guys in tough times, that you feel like might be somewhat universal to somebody who's struggling to listen to this right now, whatever it is?
Right. Well, for me personally, I guess I'm going to the dark place a lot more often than Sasha is. Sasha, so that's why we married, and it works. Sasha always drags me out of those dark moments. But I guess for me, it would be, like you're feeling awful right now, and you might think it's not gonna get any better, but it's gonna have the life ahead is gonna have a lot of dark moments and pain and terrible stuff probably, but it's also gonna have a lot of beautiful things as well. So you might want to focus on that, and I'm looking forward to the beautiful stuff in my life. Whenever I'm feeling terrible, I just kind of think about the path that I've already walked,
Right.
And whatever
You
little
might be just a few steps away from that finish
from
line
something
where
great happening, right? And like some
everything.
amazing euphoria moment. And for a lot of people who are struggling with like mental health, and like, artists are obviously um, partially very much
Rex.
yeah, train wrecks, right?
Yeah.
Very much struggling with mental health. It's difficult to like see the light behind, at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. But it's there, and little achievements that I already had, and we already had, and little wins. I kind of think, well, that wasn't that bad, it was worth the try. Even if we failed at something, I usually try to look at it from the positive perspective, like, oh, we could have done better, but there's a lesson there to be learned. No losses, only lessons. Is that the line from our new song, or what?
Gosh.
Yeah. All right. Spoiler free.
No, yes, just never give up. If you believe in something, if you want to do something, you just gotta go for it and enjoy the process, hopefully, even if it will suck and it will be painful at times. But that's life.
All right.
I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time to come by the podcast and for giving me almost an hour and a half of your time. I hope I didn't rant too much, but for people who are unaware of Major Moment, and I'll put up the links obviously in the podcast description for everybody listening, but let them know where they can find you.
Anywhere.
You can find us anywhere. But
our official website is majormomentband.com. There are all the links there. We have a beautiful merch. We just made beautiful vinyl and CDs with our new album that you can purchase and listen to the album much earlier than it will be available on streaming, which is cool. And obviously Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Right, whatever social media you use, we're there to a certain extent.
Telegram.
And we're lucky to be in a position where we can answer all comments ourselves and like all DMs ourselves. So we always encourage our listeners, like whenever they have something to say, or like whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, they definitely should feel free to say it. And even if they say a bad thing, it can lead to the most successful release of our career.
Yeah, you know now. Go ahead.
Go ahead and try. Yeah.
Yeah, Sasha, Andrey, thanks again so much, man. I'm really I'm stoked for you guys, and I'm glad that you're turning negatives into positives and using your music to connect with people and inspire people the way that you guys are chasing your dreams, man. Like for real, when I think about people, coming to this country, and learning the language and stuff, like and making really awesome music, it's really inspiring for people like me. I feel like there's a lot of times in my life, and still I don't like to admit it, where I let fear get in the way, and then I think about people like you guys, coming from a different country, building a life here and chasing your dreams, and I'm like, if they're doing it, I have no excuse,
exactly.
Man.
We appreciate it, man. And actually, that's one of the reasons, why we got into music in the first place, and that's one of the goals of Major Moment as a band, as a brand, or whatever you want to call it. That's part of us, that we kind of draw from the inspiration and from the influence that our idols, or like Linkin Park or whatever the band, your favorite band of all time is, Seven Dust, right? And like the impact that those records made on you as a person and made on us as people. And we want to appreciate it and give whatever we can back into the music community, right? And like hopefully our songs and our story inspires somebody like yourself, like you mentioned, you find it inspirational. Like we really appreciate it, because that really is close to our heart, and that's what we want to do. That's why we decided to do it. It's not because we think like we're the best musicians, or like we're
definitely not
or like we're like the best songwriters, but maybe that trial and error cycle that is slowly getting us somewhere, or at least it seems so. Right. Well, they already got us that far, so that's awesome, right? Hopefully it inspires other people to kind of get out of their shells, and get away from that fear, of not them being not significant or not important or not enough or something like that, you know. So we want other people to go and experience life and, you know, be brave with your life decisions and, you know, be smart about it and pursue whatever the goals you have, because that's the only life like we're aware of so far. And, you know, what's the reason to not, you know, live it to the
Be
fullest?
the best versions of yourself.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end it. You guys, thank you again so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And please stay in touch, man.
Absolutely.
Especially
Absolutely.
listening
Thank
to
you
live
so
in
much.
Danville, man. Like, I'm excited one day to see you guys live, man. You guys had that cool slow build that you came out to. I'm like, all right, major moment, here we go. So check out Live in Danville too. Listen to it, man. Don't sell your guys. Don't sell yourself short, man. Like, I know you joked a couple of times, like not being the greatest musicians and stuff. Like,
It's all work in progress, you know, like we think we can do much better, and we know we can do much better. That's part of it, you know. Just like, you know, when we just started making music, some people were making fun of us, like, "Oh, this is like not great. This is not very professionally done." Like, yeah, I know. Like, what do you think? I'm stupid? You know, but those are the tools that I have. And this is the inspiration I have at this point. And 5 years from now, it's gonna get better, and 5 years from today, it's gonna get even better. So it's all like a constant growth, work in progress, right? And it's all about the growth. Getting back to the album title.
That's right.
Well, I think you guys are doing a great job. The Pain That Makes Us Grow, coming soon. Sasha, Andrey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
bud.
you.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome. See you. Alrighty dighty, there you have it. That was my conversation with Sasha and Andrey of Major Moment. Make sure you go follow these guys on Instagram at major.moment. Their website is majormomentband.com. The links to all of their stuff will be in the podcast description for this episode. So just scroll down to the bottom of that podcast description, hit those links, and go follow and support Major Moment, especially if you love modern rock, hard rock, metal, pop metal. Once again, if you're a fan of Starset, Bring Me the Horizon, I Prevail, those types of bands, you will love what these guys are doing. Again, I love the balance of melody with the musicianship. Their latest single, Overcome, is out now. Go run up those numbers. Keep listening to Toxic. Keep listening to The Flood. Go back and check out their early EPs, One Small Step, and the sequel. And keep an eye out for The Pain That Makes Us Grow, their forthcoming full length. I'm just really excited for these guys, man. Once again, I just want to say to Sasha and Andrey, you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to come by the podcast and give me more than an hour of your time. It was really great speaking with you and learning more about how you got into heavy music, you know, getting your perspective on a very awful, difficult situation that's going on with Ukraine. I really admire what you guys are doing. It really inspires me to continue to do what I'm doing as well, man. You know, when I think about the tough days that I have, when I think about some of the stupid stuff that I complain about and that I worry about, I think, man, Sasha and Andrey came over here from Russia, learned the English language, are making dope music videos, and inspiring people and connecting with people in a positive way along the way. And even when there's a negative interaction with a troll online, they turned it into a positive and made Toxic, which has become their most successful single out the gate, I think, of any of their releases, you know. So let that be a lesson to everybody, man, about turning negatives into positives and just chasing your dreams. So Sasha and Andrey, once again, I can't thank you enough. I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. I really love the music that you guys are putting out, and I think that your story really is a great one to share with the listeners of this show, to just go after what you love, man. You know, I was having a conversation earlier today with my dad talking about life and, you know, where I'm at and kind of the things that I'm going through and where I want to go and all that. And, you know, life is really short, you guys. I'm 35, and when I was young, it's funny, man. I remember, you know, as a kid in school, you know, you'd have different adults that would come and speak, you know, whatever they were, you know, whether it was local professionals in the area. I remember we had the weather guy, Jay Birchback, came and talked to our class, and he's still there in Toledo. I don't know if Jay listens to the podcast, but if you do, what's up, Jay? And I remember Rick Judson from the Toledo Storm came and spoke to us, and I remember that stuff, you guys, like it was yesterday, and I was like 9-10 years old, and now I'm 35, and when you're young, you think you have all the time in the world, and then you grow up, and you get older, and now I'm like, dang, in 5 years, I'm going to be friggin' 40 years old, dude, you know, which nothing wrong with being 40, but, you know, I remember being in college like it was yesterday. I remember being in high school like it was yesterday. I remember Jay Birchback and Rick Judson coming to talk to our, you know, 4th and 5th grade classes, whatever it was, when I was a kid. I remember that like it was yesterday, and that was like 25 years ago, man. So whatever it is that you want to do with your life, you know, we all want to live to be old and gray into our 80s or 90s, right? Or at least you think you're going to get there. And, you know, the sad but true reality is that there's a lot of us who won't get there. And you know, that's kind of a scary thought in some ways, but in other ways, it's also empowering to just really, truly do the best you can every day to pursue who and what you really love, man. And I'm definitely guilty of letting fear get in the way a lot in my life. And I'm finally at that age where I'm just like, you know what, man, like forget that, you know, like I've got one life to live. Tomorrow isn't promised to me. And I've been very fortunate to grow up in a country with the freedoms that I have, to grow up with 2 parents who, even though they got divorced, they you know, made sure that we were loved, made sure we were fed, and they taught us about hard work and how to treat people, you know. And I'm so grateful for my mom and my dad for that. And I have 2 really awesome step parents. You know, I've just been really lucky, and I've been really blessed, man. And so I don't take that for granted. And, you know, sometimes I get sad when I think about I've let fear and anxiety and these things get in the way of my life. And it's never totally deterred me or totally overtaken me and prevented me from doing stuff like this, and doing this podcast, or, you know, getting in front of a camera for the first time when I was, you know, 22 years old, you know, fresh out of college, and never thought I would do broadcasting, and that really opened up other aspects of my personality and led to me doing this podcast. So if you're one of those people that, like me, you can go into hermit mode and go into your comfort zone, just know that it's those moments where you challenge yourself and you step outside of that box that life really opens up and a lot of beautiful things happen, man, you know. And I've been in Nashville almost 8 years now, and I've really grown up a lot. Just as a dude and as a human here, you know, and gone through ups and downs, fell in and out of love, new jobs, you know, like being on my own away from family and friends, and it's taught me a lot. And, you know, again, relating it back to Sasha and Andrey and Major Moment, you know, that pales in comparison to coming from another country, you know, across the world and learning a new language and chasing your dreams, man. So I hope that all of that is empowering to you out there. You know, it's okay to struggle. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have anxiety. It's okay to have depression. It's okay to not have the kind of self-confidence that maybe you want to have. But I'm living proof, and Major Moment is living proof that you can push through those things. You can overcome, no pun intended, and you can keep fighting the good fight and live to see another day and chase your dreams, man. So I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. I don't want to rant too much more because I know this episode is probably going to be approaching 2 hours, but I'm a man of my word, man. I mean what I say what I mean, and I stand on all of that and everything that I just said, man. So just be good to each other, like I say, to wrap up every episode as a tribute to my grandfather, man. Keep the faith and be kind to one another. The world needs it. Whether you're American, whether you're not American, man, just lead with love. Lead with love. It's not cheesy. It's not stupid. It's not corny. It's not wimpy. Love changes the world, you guys. There's a lot of money being made off of negative stuff. There's a lot of people who profit off of the gnarly, dirty, nasty stuff. But we don't roll like that over here, man. And I know Major Moment doesn't roll like that either. And, you know, just I know there's a lot of crazy stuff in the news. There's a lot of horrible things going on, not only in the United States, but around the world, like we talked about with the Russia-Ukraine situation. But again, I believe in love. I believe that cooler heads prevail, and I believe in the human spirit. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the times in life where, you screwed up, or where other people have screwed you over, or hurt you, or broke your heart, or made you feel small, whatever it is, man. But just think about all those people who do love you, who do support you, who are rooting for you, and think about the stuff that makes you feel most alive. And trust me when I say, man, when you muster up the courage to go for it, there is no failure in effort. There is no failure in effort. Please remember that. I'll say it one more time, just to stick it in. There's no failure in effort, you guys. So I hope things like this show, conversations like this, good people like Sasha and Andrey of Major Moment, I really truly hope it inspires you to go after your dreams, man. And I don't say that in a self-righteous way. I just really believe in love, and I believe in positivity, and those things have made a difference in my life as somebody who has struggled with anxiety and depression and self-esteem and compulsions, all that stuff, man. I'm working through it, and I'm grateful for all the people that are helping me. I'm grateful for my therapist. I'm grateful for heavy music, my family, exercise, and this podcast, and everybody who listens to it, man. So none of us are perfect. Nobody's got it all figured out. Don't let anybody tell you they do, because they're full of it. But just keep fighting a good fight. Be good to yourself, be good to other people. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody. If you need some help and you need to push through something, you are not alone, man. So once again, keep the faith and be kind to one another. You can follow me on Instagram at March4thPod, on YouTube at March4thPod. My website is march4th.podbean.com. Go follow Major Moment at major.moment. Their website is majormomentband.com. They've got some awesome merch over there. Check it out. Keep running up the streams on all their music. They deserve the love. They deserve the support. And keep an eye out for their forthcoming full length, The Pain That Makes Us Grow. That's going to be a wrap on this week's episode. I love you all, and I truly appreciate everybody who listens. Courtesy of Major Moment, here is their latest single, Overcome. Peace.
With my eyes held open, we measure suffering in ways they'll never know. The awful pain of lacerations that were self-imposed. I suppose I wouldn't have it any other way. Like a phoenix rising over new horizons, speeding from that old inferno glow. Don't let the paralyzing panic fill your eyes. If we overcome the pain, we will grow. The gloom of winter left us spinning the wheels. The spring awoke to find us tampering steel. The summer heat impugned the meaning